Up till now, in Unit 4, in which we were discussing official correspondences, we have talked about different types of letters, goodwill letters, apology letters. We have talked about promotion letters, appointment letters, confirmation letters. Then we moved over to a discussion on the basic differences between the commercial and the official correspondences. Then we also talked about memorandums, what they are meant for and how they are used. And then we moved over to discussion on notices, and there also we discussed the format and what is the main objective of using notice as a tool for official correspondence. And then in the last session that we had, we talked about circulars. Now in this session, we are going to talk about minutes of meeting, right? I hope you remember what we had discussed in the circular. The minutes of meeting is a slightly different thing. We have to understand what we mean by minutes of meeting. Basically, it is a written record of whatever has transpired in a particular meeting. So in an organization, whenever a meeting takes place, whatever has been discussed, whatever conclusion has been reached upon, everything is actually documented in a document, and this document is known as the minutes of meeting. So this is basically a written record of whatever has transpired in the meeting. Now have a look at the format of minutes of meeting. Now please understand, in the sense that at the top you have the name of the organization, and then you have the title of the document, meeting minutes. In this sense, it is very much like a circular or a notice, right? So we have got the name of the organization and the title as well as date. Now, but please understand that the date is not on the extreme right or left. It is in the middle, just below the title, right? So this is one difference from a circular. Now please have a look at the format of minutes of meeting. These are the various contents, various elements of minutes of meeting. Is that okay? Okay. Now please understand, number one element is the opening. What do we do in the opening? We basically write down as to who had called the meeting, what was the date on which the meeting was called, and what was the timing, and what was the venue of the meeting. Please understand, this date is the date on which the minutes of meeting have been issued. This may not be the date of the meeting. The date of meeting was May 1st. It so happened that the meeting minutes were also prepared on the same date. That's why you see that date here. Otherwise, if the meeting minutes had been prepared on 2nd of May, you would have seen here 2nd May. The opening tells you when the meeting was organized, what was the timing, and what was the venue, and who was the person who actually called the meeting, Dr. Ashok Kumar. You don't need to give the designation here. What you have to do is, when you write down details of those present and those absent, here you have to mention the details. So if somebody wants to know as to who Dr. Ashok Kumar is, he would have a look at this particular element here, the present, those who are present in the meeting and those who are absent. So Dr. Ashok Kumar's name would figure somewhere here. Now here the name is figuring Dr. Ashok Kumar, the principal, and then we have got 4 other members. So in all, 5 members were present in that particular meeting, which was held on May 1. And that is why we are writing the names of these 5 people under this particular heading, present. Then we have got absent. That individual or those individuals who were invited to the meeting but they could not attend because of various reasons, their names appear here. So Miss Kulwant Kaur was one invited to the meeting who could not attend because of maybe some reasons, right? So here we have to find out, we have to actually give the names of people who have been present and the members who have not been present, who have been absent. Now then we move over to the 4th part, which is the approval of agenda. Now what do we mean by this? See, agenda is the main theme on which the meeting is taking place, right? And whenever you are inviting people for a particular meeting, you want them to come prepared for that particular meeting. So they should come prepared, then only some discussion that will take place in the meeting would be fruitful. So what you do is, you circulate the agenda among these people beforehand. So if the meeting, let's say, was held on May 1, the agenda must have been circulated at least on 30th of April or maybe even prior to that. Why is this being done? Again, the reason is so that everybody who has to attend the meeting, first of all, he gets to know as to what are the various details like venue and timing, and then he or she also gets to know as to what is going to be discussed so that he or she may come prepared. So what we do is, we actually circulate the agenda first, beforehand, पहले ही कर देते हैं. So this agenda must have been circulated, and this must have been approved by all the members who were to participate in the meeting. So all 6 members, including 5 who could participate, and the 1 member, Ms. Kulwant Kaur, who could not participate because of some reasons. So they must have approved the agenda. So the agenda was unanimously, unanimous means everybody consented to approving the agenda. So there was no dissenting from anybody. Everybody said, okay, we are fine with the agenda. So that is what means unanimous. When everybody in a particular group agrees on a particular thing, we say a unanimous decision. So the agenda was unanimously approved as distributed. So whatever agenda was distributed beforehand, it was unanimously approved by all the 6 invitees to the meeting, right? Now, many a times a particular meeting also takes stock of what has happened in the last meeting, and it would also give its approval to the minutes of the meeting which was held last. And this is what is happening here, approval of minutes. So which minutes are we talking about? Not the minutes of this meeting, the minutes of the meeting which was held just prior to this particular meeting. So the minutes of the previous meeting were unanimously approved as distributed. Fine. So the first thing that was done in this particular meeting on May 1 was, they approved the minutes of the last meeting, right? Fine. Now we come to the main part. Now this is basically the main part, the elements, the main element of the minutes of meeting. Minutes. Now what do we mean by minutes here? It would document all the important things which have taken place, which have been discussed in the meeting. Now have a look, but of course it is going to be very, very brief. It's not going to be too detailed. Okay, so under minutes, what we have written here, Mr. Gorakhnath apprised the members that AICT has granted approval for 2-year full-time MBA course in this particular department. You can do what? You can pause the video and first go through the content, right? So you can do that. I am moving again. Mr. Gorakhnath apprised. So Mr. Gorakhnath told the members in the meeting about the approval which was granted to the full-time MBA program of this particular department in this particular college, right? Then Mr. Garfield Pick. Now if I want to know who Mr. Gorakhnath is, who Mr. Garfield Pick is, I need to look at this particular designation here. So Mr. Gorakhnath is basically HOD management. Mr. Garfield is basically Dean Academics. So Mr. Garfield Pick proposed an initial budget of rupees 20 lakhs for purchase of furniture and laboratories. Since the MBA program is about to start, it has got approval. So naturally they need to purchase furniture and laboratories. So Mr. Garfield said that we should give them rupees 20 lakhs so that they can purchase these necessary equipments, right? The same was approved by the members present by a majority of 4 to 1. Now, what does this mean? This means that out of the 5 members present, only 4 were in agreement with this proposal of Mr. Garfield Pick of allocating rupees 20 lakhs to this particular department so that they can buy furniture and laboratory equipments. There was one person who was not in agreement with this particular proposal. That is why majority of 4 to 1. 4 agreed while 1 member disagreed. And now who was this member who disagreed? Mr. Gorakhnath dissented. Dissented means did not go along with the majority of the opinion. He said something which was different from what the majority was saying. So Mr. Gorakhnath dissented, demanding that the budget amount be enhanced to rupees 50 lakh. So what was the point on which Mr. Gorakhnath differed from others? He said instead of rupees 20 lakh, please issue department rupees 50 lakh. So that was one issue on which Mr. Gorakhnath dissented, and that's why it has been written that the proposal was approved by a majority of 4 to 1. So Mr. Gorakhnath was the one who dissented, right? However, still the proposal was approved because it was having backing by majority of the members. 4 out of 5 members backed that proposal, so it was approved. So the decision making, if it is not possible for you to arrive at a decision unanimously, you may go for voting, and then you can decide on the basis of majority, right? The third point is Dr. Ashok Kumar directed Miss Sundari. Now, who is Miss Sundari? We need to understand. We'll have to go here. Chief Administrative Officer, to release the approved budget. Now, which budget has been approved by majority? 20 lakhs. So, Mr. Ashok Kumar has directed Miss Sundari to release this approved budget by this particular date, which means within 1 month of this particular meeting. The meeting was held on 1st of May, right? So, this is how we actually write down the main thing which has transpired in the meeting, right? Now, agenda for the next meeting is also decided. Many a times the meeting before closing decides what will be the agenda for the next meeting. And what has been the agenda, please have a look. Status of release of budget, this particular budget which Dr. Ashok Kumar has directed Ms. Sundari to release, whether it has been released or not. If it has been released, whether the complete 100% amount has been released or only partial amount has been released. So this has to be discussed. And assessment of progress in budget utilization. So what is the department doing regarding this money which has been allocated to it, rupees 20 lakh, how they are spending it, and how much of that particular money has been spent by them. This again is going to be another topic to be discussed in the next meeting. So here we have mentioned the agenda for the next meeting also. And then we mention adjournment. Adjournment is calling of the meeting. So meeting was adjourned by Dr. Ashok Kumar at 11:30 am, right? So the meeting took place for just 30 minutes and the next meeting has been scheduled on June 5th. So on June 5th, the next meeting, 35 days from May 1, June 5th, the next meeting has been scheduled at 11 am in the main office. Is that fine? So this also has to be mentioned. Now please understand who has written these minutes. It's not the principal, it's not the Dean Academics. Maybe the junior officials would be probably writing this particular minute, and so it has been written by the Chief Administrative Officer, who appears to be junior most in terms of designation among those present, right? So it is Miss Sundari who has prepared these minutes. She must have taken notes while the meeting was on, and now she has actually prepared the minutes. But this needs approval by some senior official. So Mr. Garfield Pick, who is the Dean Academics, must have gone through the minutes before they were released, and he must have approved them. So the minutes were approved by Mr. Garfield Pick, who is a senior fellow, while the submission was done by Ms. Sundari, who is relatively junior to Mr. Garfield Pick. Fine. So this is how you have to write the minutes of meeting. This is the format that you will have to follow. Is that fine? Now please understand a few more things which you need to remember always. Number one, as I said earlier also, minutes of meeting, the date appears here is not the date of the meeting. It's the date on which the meeting minutes have been made public and they have been circulated, right? It could be May 2 also, it could be May 3 also, or it could be some other date also after May 1, right? So this is one thing that you have to understand. And secondly, once the minutes have been approved by Mr. Garfield Pick, they would then be circulated to the members who participated in the meeting. Plus, they can also be circulated to the wider audience, to more employees, to other employees in the organization. Is that fine? So this is how you have to write minutes of meeting. Please understand, I had told you that in organizations, generally, if there is a lot of trust between employees, most of the work is done on the basis of oral communication, right? Not written communication. However, meetings are very, very important things in organization, because in meetings only you decide the future course of action, the changes in strategies, changes in tactics. So whatever important things are discussed, they are generally documented. And how do you document them? Using the minutes of meeting, right? So wherever you find any problem, whichever element in this minutes of meeting you are unable to understand, be it opening, be it approval of agenda, be it approval of minutes, you need to pause the video there and then and have a relook at what I said. Just go through the video content again so that you are better able to understand it. Thank you very much.